Hello and welcome to the Growth Vantage Podcast. My name is Garrett Vita and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk about this topic about two viewpoints on how to increase your current awareness. The reason I really wanted to talk about this topic is because no matter what we do in life, we always have an awareness about something. Let's say about real estate investing, and there's so many things and influences that affect our us as investors that really affect on how we think and how we behave. But we can't really change or adjust what we're doing if we don't know what to change. And so these viewpoints have helped me to really understand my reality of that present moment. And through these two viewpoints, it helps me ask various different questions and different ways to think about what the topic is for me so that I can really know how my blind spots, maybe there's something I'm missing, maybe a resource, or maybe I need to really put myself in this situation, different perceptions, and all those types of things that really go into play into our awareness. And those two viewpoints are role and interdependence. When we think about role, I want you to think of just the role in itself. I want you to think about like the role is being like you looking at something in front of you. So role will include your own perception. So my perception of a topic, let's say in being a real estate investor, my perceptions about the role of an investor. It's gonna be what other people may perceive about that role. So it could be, let's say Bill, right? His perceptions about a real estate investor, as well as the greater picture of everything. So like society, the society is definitely going to impact the role of an investor and how ourselves play into that role. The reason why we want to correlate ourselves, others, as well as societal, because each has a different viewpoint about that role. When we put all those three, it's going to help us really to see like what are things that those three views might have an influence on this, which in turn will affect how I think and behave and go out and take action. So let me dive a little deeper into my perception. So it's gonna really think about like what my past experiences or what I've heard from about that role. So it could be like, oh, investor, I might if I'm may have perceptions of like certain looks, maybe I have certain perceptions about maybe a certain degree or maybe a certain income or whatever it may be. I'm gonna have perceptions of that role. It's important for me to understand that role so I know what barriers aren't good for me to keep, or maybe as I find along, maybe they are good things for me to find out. It's the same thing with the role of, let's say, Bill, what others' perceptions of that role may be. So my perceptions of the role of investor will be different from Bill's as well as from Sarah's. So the more things we can think about like other people's perceptions of that role might be, that's gonna help us to allow us to really step into that role differently and adjust easier so that when things do come our way, maybe positive or negative, we can adjust easier. Because there's so many things that influence us when we're having conversations, when we're taking action can affect us. And so that allowing that ourselves to be more aware about those roles from each viewpoint, from myself, from others, as well as society, it can help us really break bad habits or really increase our good habits. The second part is very, very closely tied to this is interdependence. This refers to me and someone else. But the difference between this independence and role is the relationship between these two. So it's going to be more so of like an actual person that you're going to be talking with. So it'll be an investor and maybe let's say a general contractor, or an investor and a title company. When we start to think about those relationships as from an escrow company or from a general contractor or a real estate agent, when we start to really think about how reliant we are, it's going to help us really tailor how I can add value to them and how well they can add value to me, and to really expand our awareness on like how is communication, what actions are expected of each side, what things may be a blind spot of theirs, as well as how can they help me with my own blind spots. Those are the kind of questions I ask myself when it comes to the interdependence between various individuals within the topic. So as investors, we have GCs, real estate agents, escrow companies, yada, yada, yada. And so we need to really think about the dynamic of the relationship between each person, quite literally, into it, and how we really communicate and how we take action with each other. So when we start to really think about the relationships between us, it's going to help us really ground us in who we are, and not really to inflate our heads, because when we come into new situations, sometimes there's like an ego or whatever it may be, can really deter us from really not moving the way that we want, or sometimes it can deter us from not really communicating the way we need, because sometimes when we come to new situations or we meet new people, we may unintentionally say things we don't mean, and so we understanding that relationship can really help solidify that. Let me give you an example. So I can tell I look on the younger side typically, and when I was back in New York Live, I like to be younger. so I would go to these meetings with generally older people, men and women, and so usually the older dudes would kind of like prey on me because of my younger age, and so I understood the importance of relationships. Many times they would kind of say kind of mean things, and so it's very reactionary to like want to respond. But I did understand that role and the relationship I'm having at that time was so important, because there's other people around me that are seeing how I'm responding. If I don't really tailor this and really hone in on the relationship, it's going to affect the other people that I do want a relationship with, because how I react, they're going to see. And so it's so important to really see how that dynamic actually works. And if we don't really understand or be aware of those viewpoints, it can affect how we take action and communicate. And I think for the role part, I think I actually learned this from nursing school, because one of the theories is about how so many different roles we affect, and how we really flip roles at certain times. One could be a dad, one could be an investor, one could be a school teacher, whatever it may be. And so how we really switch those really affects how we are currently influenced at that time. And it's important to really understand, okay, as investors, we have this role on, but something maybe also be affecting our current role as well. That role from a dad might be affecting an investor, or maybe your full-time job as a school teacher, maybe that's affecting how that role is affecting the current role as well. So it's also important to consider different roles and how they affect each other as well. So the main 2 points is really role and interdependence. We start to think about how each individual person relies on the relationship with each other, as well as how each role is influenced by other roles, as well as yourself. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.